Tonight on First at 9 this Saturday the 6th of July 2024. You decide. President Ranil Wickremesinghe calls on the public to take a wise decision at the upcoming presidential election. Sword of Justice. IGP Tennakone vows to free Sri Lanka from drugs and organised crime by the end of this year. Strong rebound. Sri Lanka earns $1.5 billion from tourism during the first half of this year.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
මේ වෙලාවේ රනිල් තමයි.
From Derana, this is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to Derana First at 9. I'm Aditya Singh joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. Now taking you straight to your top story this evening, while highlighting that Sri Lanka's education system must change, President Ranil Wickremesinghe asserted that no one else has the authority to say anything to the contrary on the matter, since he prepared the white papers on education policy in effect at the moment back in 1981 and 1982. He went on to say that it is imperative for Sri Lanka to keep up with modern trends as the world moves ahead at warp speed. Meanwhile, Minister of Education Dr. Susil Premajayantha assured the public that all 10,026 schools in the island will be digitized within the next 3 years.
Under the Southern Province Smart Classroom project, 200 smart classrooms and 2,000 tabs were presented to 200 schools in Galle. The project was funded by the Indian government at a cost of 300 million rupees, following a request made by Minister of Health Dr. Ramesh Pathirana.
We will make several changes to the administration of the education sector by the 1st of January. We have already begun efforts to implement those changes. There will be 1,250 clusters. We will create a network for the main schools within the 1,250 clusters and provide smart classrooms to those schools. Fiber optic internet connections, which are pivotal for this project, have already been provided for 700 schools so far, with plans underway to provide the connection to other schools in the area. Other schools will receive that connection within the second phase of this project. Accordingly, our plan is to digitize all 10,026 schools in the country within the next 3 years.
Before the budget was presented to Parliament last year, I met the President and urged him to allocate more funds to the industrial sector, which is my ministerial portfolio. Although the President agreed that more funds are required for industries, he told me that the priority of the government at the moment is education, health and housing. Therefore, it is clear that the development of education and health are cornerstones in the President's vision.
Education continues to receive dedicated attention in our bilateral engagements. The focus in this domain is also shifting from hard physical infrastructure to the new ones, the digital tools. The driving philosophy behind the establishment of smart classrooms is to expose the students in rural parts of Sri Lanka to the limitless possibilities of the digital world. These students can benefit from resources and materials across the globe. Guided by our neighborhood first policy, we want our brothers, sisters and children in Sri Lanka to also benefit from our accomplishments. More than a dependable partner, India is your eternal friend.
Moving forward, it is imperative that we transform Sri Lanka's school curriculum and the education system as a whole. It must be restructured in the interest of the future. Some ask us why the country's education system must be transformed. Whenever I hear that question, what I tell them is that I prepare the white papers pertaining to the education policy in effect at the moment back in 1981 and 1982. Therefore, if I am of the opinion that it should change, what authority has anyone else got to debate with me on the matter? Everyone has a mobile phone today. Technology is very advanced today. Therefore, we must keep up with the modern trends.
Crunchy goodness for hunger on the go.
Now, Inspector General of the Police Desribandu Tennakone assured that Sri Lanka Police will free the island nation from narcotics and organised crime by the end of this year. Addressing an event in Vellawaya, he said that the police launched the Yukti operation with a purpose and added that they do not intend to conduct media circuses.
A program themed A Law-Abiding Nation to empower the community police in the Uva province was held today. The event, which was graced by President Ranil Wickremesinghe as the chief guest, was also attended by Minister of Public Security Derana and Inspector General of Police Deshabandhu Tennakon.
දෙසැම්බර් මාසේ 17 වෙනිදා යුක්තිය මෙහෙයුම මුළු ලංකාව පුරාම අපි ආරම්භ කරා.
We launched the Yukti operation island-wide on the 17th of December. Some called that operation a media circus. We have no intention of engaging in media circuses. By the end of 2024, Sri Lanka police will eradicate drugs and organised crime from the country.
පොලිසිය ක්‍රියා කරන බව ඉතාම වගකීමෙන් ප්‍රකාශ කරමින් මගේ වචන ස්වල්පය අවසන් කරනවා.
මම හිතුවා මගේ ජීවිතය උනත් පරිද්දුවට තබලා
I wanted to sacrifice my life to maintain law, order and peace in the country according to the wishes of the President. There was a time when people found it difficult to walk on streets of Colombo. Certain aptly named localities in the city were notorious for criminal activities. With the assistance of the armed forces, we eradicated organized crime from those localities in Colombo.
නැවත වැඩ කටයුතු කරන්න පටන්
අපි දැන් ටිකෙන් ටික ආර්ථිකය හදාගෙන යනවා.
We are in the process of developing our economy. We have to control our income and expenditure. We have no funds to spare. The government is unable to allocate even a single cent to increase allowances this year. We have to get ready for the presidential and parliamentary elections by mid-July. We have no time to engage in other endeavours. We are unable to increase salaries. We have appointed a committee to look into a possible increase to allowances next year. Once we receive the committee report, steps will be taken to allocate funds to finance those allowances through the 2025 budget.
2025 අයවැයට ඒ මුදල් ලබා දෙන්න ක්‍රියා කරනවා.
Horizon Campus 2024 intake. Register now.
Now, Minister of Foreign Affairs, President's Counsel Ali Sabri is scheduled to undertake an official visit to Singapore tomorrow. According to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the subject minister will be visiting Singapore following an invitation extended by his Singaporean counterpart, Dr. Vivian Balakrishnan. During the visit, Minister Sabri is expected to engage in bilateral discussions with Dr. Vivian Balakrishnan with a view of strengthening the multifaceted relations between the two countries. The Foreign Minister is also scheduled to take part in the Reuters Next Asia Pacific Summit 2024, which will take place on the 9th of July in Singapore.
Star dishwasher Dali Hell Indul Pahasuwen Sede. Star dishwasher Magic Tub එක.
Crunchy goodness for hunger on the go.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe calls on the general public to take a wise decision and cast their vote in the upcoming presidential election. Addressing an event in Galle, the head of state said that the decision regarding Sri Lanka's future is in the hands of the public. While highlighting the need to create a future for the youth, the president also called on the opposition to join with him in moving the country forward in the right direction.
The Galle District Convention of the United National Party was held this morning under the patronage of President Ranil Wickremesinghe.
We must support the ongoing program. I inquired into the political opinion of school principals and teachers in the northern province. They told me that everyone in the north would vote for Ranil Wickremesinghe. No one in any province will conduct experiments this time. The president is a national leader for all communities island-wide. He will secure the majority of the votes in the northern and eastern provinces.
People are confused whether President Ranil Wickremesinghe will contest the election or not. We assure you that President Ranil Wickremesinghe will contest the upcoming presidential election and will be elected to the office of the president.
We should not divide ourselves. We need all parliamentarians of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, including Dr. Ramesh Patrana. We also need other political parties as well. We can revive Sri Lanka and ensure a future for its children only if we all unite. We must all support Ranil Wickremesinghe to claim a historic win in the upcoming presidential poll.
Once the Election Commission announces a date for the election somewhere in September or October, all of you must decide whether we are to move forward in the same direction or not. That is, where are we now? You must decide whether you want this country to have a secure future or not. When former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa invited all parties to discuss matters pertaining to the country's economy, only the Tamil political parties and I attended the meeting. The duty of the opposition leader was to accept the responsibility. However, he ran away. The JVP was nowhere to be found. I invited the SJB to support me in this endeavour. What happened? Only Harin and Manusha crossed the floor and came to my aid. Some of the parliamentarians of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna crossed over and joined the Samagijana Balavegaya. People like Nalaka Godaheva, who claim to be saviors of the country's economy, are in this JB now. I did not appoint new ministers. Instead, I'd work with those who held portfolios. Those who lost their portfolios came forward and supported us. In the end, a good team emerged. There has to be a team like that to take the country forward. We did not think about politics back then. I always invite the opposition to join us. We cannot reduce the prices of goods when the rupee is depreciating. What we have to do instead is increase the level of income. Next, we want to provide a good future for the youth.
Now, General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, Sagara Karyavasam, says that the SLPP will nominate a candidate who steadfastly opposes any separatist agenda against the country for the presidential polls. He made those remarks at a meeting in Monaragala today. The Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna's Monaragala electorate meeting was held today, garnering the participation of several key members of the party.
I recently saw some war veterans also joining Anura Kumara Disanayaka. We must ask them if they are not ashamed to do so. I implore all parents to protect their children from the JVP.
We have
a plan to develop the economy. There is no need to fear. Our party was formed to protect state assets, not to sell them off. Our nominee for the presidential election will be a leader who intends to keep the country united. Our nominee will be a leader who steadfastly opposes any separatist agenda against our country. Our nominee will be a leader who refuses to sell off national assets. A leader who envisions a brighter future for the children of this country.
Some are
questioning now whether the presidential election should be held in 5 or 6 years. If they really wanted to do that, they should have done so earlier. They are raising these questions just a week before the election commission is scheduled to decide on the date. There are several people like that. However, as a party, we oppose postponing elections. As a party that follows the political policies of Mahinda Rajapaksa, the Podujana Peramuna will not let anyone postpone the upcoming presidential election. I invite you all to spread this message to the grassroots. We have a vision to develop the country's economy and to secure the jobs of the younger generation. We don't have plans to sell off state-owned assets. We will protect our fishermen, secure labor rights and preserve our traditions and all religions in the country. We have a plan to develop the national economy based on a national vision.
Now, the National People's Power leader Anura Kumara Disanayaka claims that the government burdened Sri Lankans immensely while implementing the IMF program and restructuring Sri Lanka's debt. While commending the government on getting Sri Lanka's debt repayments postponed, the NPP leader went on to highlight, however, that the government celebrated a temporary treatment to a self-inflicted problem. A meeting of medical professionals in the Kurunegala district, organised by the National Intellectual Organisation, was held under the patronage of the National People's Power leader, Anura Kumara Disanayaka.
It would have been impossible to implement the IMF program without restructuring Sri Lanka's debt. What did we do with the IMF? We came to an agreement with the IMF and we fulfilled a lot of conditions outlined in that agreement. A lot of those conditions were fulfilled by burdening the general public immensely. To successfully restructure debt, the government had to present an acceptable balance sheet while controlling expenditure and increasing income. The balance sheet prepared as such indicates to the international community that the country's debt servicing capabilities would improve in the future, establishing firm grounds for Sri Lanka to request for a postponement of debt servicing payments. How did the restructuring of debt become a festive occasion, even prompting the president to address the nation? I recently observed how India celebrated their successful moon landing. Here in Sri Lanka, we celebrate postponing debt repayments. We have no victories to celebrate as a nation. If we agree to abide by the IMF program, restructuring debt is a mandatory condition. However, they indeed managed to postpone the repayment of debt. That is actually not too bad. But what actually happened was that they took on debt themselves, which they refused to pay. Then they negotiated an extension to the deadline of the repayment of debt and then celebrate it as an achievement.
Now, in other political news, opposition leader Sajith Premadasa reiterated the need for all citizens to be smart when responding to issues of national importance, highlighting that it would prevent the powerful few from abusing power. Speaking at the 294th iteration of the Sakvala program, the opposition leader stated that the general public must get together to protect their rights vested in them by the Constitution.
Smart classroom equipments and dictionaries were donated to Kokawala National School in Kekanadura by opposition leader Sajith Premadasa under the 294th iteration of the Sakvala program.
We must
have a smart understanding about everything. If we don't have that understanding, some might abuse power and use it arbitrarily for self-serving purposes. However, if all Sri Lankans respond to all problems and issues smartly, and if we have a good awareness regarding most subjects, the few that hold power will not be able to abuse it. Everyone should know their rights and privileges. The Constitution belongs to the people. It is only if your individual rights are protected that the sovereignty and autonomy of the people will be protected. Without bringing politics into it, you must protect those rights together as citizens. Today, protecting public rights is of national importance.
Themed Happy Nation and Entrepreneurial State, the first draft of the strategic plan of the Sarvajana Balaya was unveiled today at Sri Jayawardhanapura Kotte. Addressing the gathering today, executive member of the Sarvajana Balaya, Dilith Jayavira, affirms that they will visit all 10,030 Grama-Niladhari divisions across the island to discuss about the key issues of the country. Meanwhile, leader of the Pivithuru Helorume, Uday Gammanpilla, assures to put forward a modern concept which has never been introduced by any political party in the country's history.
The maiden draft of the strategic plan for public discourse of the Sarvajana Balaya was unveiled today. Themed A Happy Nation and Entrepreneurial State, the event saw the attendance of the leaders of the political parties representing the Sarvajana Balaya Alliance.
This draft consists of several key issues which are generally believed to be widely discussed. This is the beginning of the dialogue with the public to present the final plan of our strategic program, which provides the foundation for our journey towards creating a happy nation. Starting on the 12th of next month, we expect nearly 14,030 Grama-Niladhari divisions across the country to initiate this conversation.
It is crucial to note that there will be only 20 ministerial portfolios in the government that we expect to form. This entire program will be divided into 20 ministerial portfolios. Targets will be set for them which they have to meet within 5 years. A council will be established to inspect whether the program has become a reality. This council will release an annual report. Other than a reasonable excuse, if a ministry fails to perform the tasks assigned for a particular year, the public can take legal measures against the minister in charge and urge him to fulfill that task. This is a modern concept that has never been introduced by any political party in history because most of them were afraid to put this proposal forward. Further, if a minister continuously fails to perform for 3 consecutive years, the relevant minister together with the secretary to the relevant ministry should resign. Such people cannot hold any ministerial portfolio or secretary position in that particular government again. Not only that, we have proposed the removal of immunity granted to the president.
No country has developed by moving away from an entrepreneurial concept that aims to protect, develop and affirm the existence of entrepreneurs. All developed nations use this concept of empowering entrepreneurs and national productivity. We are currently moving towards that camp and we extend our invitation to the public to join us.
Welcome back. Now in your business news, Sri Lanka's tourism earnings have increased up to $1.5 billion during the first 6 months of 2024, a 77% increase compared to the corresponding period last year. According to the data issued by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, the tourist arrivals have gone up by 61.7% during the first 6 months of this year compared to the corresponding period last year. During the first 6 months of 2024, a total of 1,010,249 tourists have arrived in Sri Lanka. For the year 2024, Sri Lanka expects to attract 2.3 million tourists, meaning Sri Lanka is short of 1.3 million to achieve the target. Now in some international business news, US job growth slowed last month, although the economy still created more posts than expected. According to the official data, employers added 206,000 jobs in June, while the number of jobs created in May was revised down to 218,000 from the previous estimate of 272,000. The US unemployment rate edged up 4.1%, while the wage growth rose at its slowest for 3 years. Analysts said that the figures could take the US Central Bank, the Federal Reserve, a step closer to cutting rates later this year. Economists had forecast that the US economy would add 190,000 jobs in June. Financial markets, meanwhile, are betting on a roughly 72% probability of a rate cut at the Fed's September meeting, and traders are also pricing in a rising chance of a second rate cut in December. And with that, we wrap up tonight's edition of Ada Derana First at 9. Thank you. Have a great night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit adaderana.lk.